men, the most painful betrayal in relationships isn't the act of infidelity itself. It's the months or years you invested, believing you were building something real with someone who was always capable of betrayal. Before we dive in, hit subscribe, smash that like and hype button, and drop a comment if you've ever experienced infidelity, and looking back, recognize these early warning signs you initially ignored. Your experience might help another man identify these red flags before he commits to someone who will eventually betray him. Habit 1. The overlap pattern. How she started with you reveals how she'll leave. When you discover the timeline of how your relationship began and realize she was still involved with someone else when she started pursuing or dating you, whether she was technically still with her ex, in a complicated situation, or claiming she was basically done with that relationship, this overlap isn't just about her past. It's a preview of your future, because how she starts relationships reveals how she'll end them. What this reveals? This reveals she practices relationship overlap, refusing to be genuinely single between commitments. Women who overlap relationships are essentially monkey branching, maintaining one relationship until they've secured the next, which means they're never truly available or single. If she overlapped from her ex to you, she'll overlap from you to the next man when she decides to move on. Notice how she describes the timing. If she's vague about when her previous relationship ended versus when things started with you, or if her timeline doesn't quite add up, she's obscuring overlap she knows looks bad. Women who transition cleanly between relationships can clearly articulate, "I broke up with him in March, started dating again in June, met you in July." Vagueness suggests messy boundaries. Watch her justification for the overlap. If she explains she was emotionally done with the previous relationship before physically leaving it, or that her ex didn't count because things were bad, she's revealing her framework. Relationships end emotionally before officially, which means she'll be emotionally done with you while still physically in the relationship, already building her next connection. The pattern to notice. She might minimize the overlap by framing the previous relationship as essentially over. "We were basically broken up," or "it was ending anyway." These justifications reveal she's comfortable beginning new romantic connections before officially ending current ones. When your relationship hits rough patches, she'll consider it basically over while you still think you're working on things, and she'll be building her exit relationship. Additionally, notice if she has a history of overlapping relationships. If every relationship in her history transitioned directly to the next without gaps of being single, she's established a pattern of never being alone, always securing the next relationship before leaving the current one. This pattern indicates she'll do the same when leaving you. How to assess? Ask directly about the timeline between her last relationship and yours. How much time were you single between your ex and when we started dating? Clear answers indicate clean transitions. Vague answers or defensive reactions suggest overlap she's uncomfortable admitting. Also explore her relationship history for patterns. How long are you usually single between relationships? If she's never single for meaningful periods, she's a serial monogamist who overlaps rather than someone who processes endings before starting new beginnings. This means you're not special. You're the next branch she grabbed before letting go of the last one. Habit 2. The boundary flexibility. Inappropriate connections. She maintains. When she maintains close relationships with ex-partners, former romantic interests, or male friends who clearly have romantic feelings for her, and she dismisses your concerns about these connections as you being insecure or controlling, she's not just defending friendships. She's revealing her approach to boundaries is flexible based on what she wants, rather than what's appropriate, which means boundaries around fidelity will also bend when convenient. What this reveals? This reveals she prioritizes maintaining her options over respecting relationship boundaries. Women who keep ex-partners or interested men in close orbit are essentially keeping backup options available. If she's unwilling to establish appropriate distance from men who want more than friendship, she's keeping doors open she should be closing, which indicates she'll keep doors open to others, even while committed to you. Notice how she defends these connections. If she makes you the problem, you're insecure, you don't trust me, they're just friends. Rather than acknowledging why these relationships might be inappropriate, she's deflecting from examining her own boundaries. She's more invested in maintaining these connections than in addressing your legitimate concerns, which reveals where her priorities lie. Watch whether these relationships have appropriate boundaries. Does she text these men constantly? Spend time alone with them? Discuss your relationship problems with them? Share emotional intimacy that should be reserved for your relationship? If her friendships with these men include romantic-style intimacy without the title, she's already engaging in emotional boundary violations that predict future physical ones. The pattern to notice. She might explicitly state that she doesn't believe in cutting people off just because of a relationship, or that she stays friends with everyone. This philosophy sounds mature and confident, but it actually reveals she won't establish protective boundaries around your relationship. When another man pursues her, she won't shut it down definitively, because that would mean cutting someone off, which she doesn't do. Additionally, notice if she has a pattern of close guy friends who are all romantically interested in her at some point. If she's surrounded by men who have feelings for her, but she maintains they're just friends, she's either remarkably unaware or deliberately keeping these options available. Either interpretation is concerning for future fidelity. How to assess? Express concern about a specific relationship and observe her response. I'm uncomfortable with how much you text your ex. It feels like there are inappropriate boundaries. If she immediately gets defensive, attacks you, or refuses to even discuss adjusting the relationship, she's prioritizing that connection over your comfort. Women who respect boundaries address concerns rather than attack the person raising them. Also observe whether she voluntarily establishes protective boundaries. Does she mention turning down one-on-one invitations from male friends? Does she tell you when someone expresses interest and explain how she shut it down? Women who value fidelity proactively protect boundaries. Women who maintain flexibility wait to see what opportunities develop. Habit 3. The attention requirement. Constant need for external validation. When she requires constant attention and validation from multiple sources, her social media needs regular engagement. She needs to be noticed and admired in social settings. She becomes anxious or upset when she's not receiving attention, and she seeks validation from men other than you. She's not just confident or social. She's revealing a psychological need for external validation that won't be satisfied by one committed relationship, which means she'll seek validation outside your relationship when you inevitably can't provide constant admiration. What this reveals? This reveals she derives self-worth from external attention rather than internal confidence. Women who need constant validation become vulnerable to infidelity because their need for admiration can't be met by one person indefinitely. When the relationship moves past the initial intense attention phase into comfortable partnership, her validation needs will drive her to seek attention elsewhere. Notice the sources of attention she seeks. If she needs validation specifically from male attention, how she looks, how desirable she is, how men respond to her, rather than general social validation, she's specifically seeking romantic-style attention. This need doesn't disappear when she's in a relationship. It continues driving behavior that crosses boundaries. Watch what happens when attention decreases. In early dating, you're providing intense focus and admiration. When that naturally settles into comfortable relationship patterns, does she become anxious, pick fights, or start seeking attention elsewhere? If decreasing intensity makes her feel neglected or unappreciated, she'll eventually seek intensity outside your relationship. The pattern to notice. She might frame her attention needs positively. I just like feeling appreciated, or there's nothing wrong with enjoying compliments. While everyone likes appreciation, notice if her need seems bottomless. No amount of attention is ever quite enough. If you compliment her extensively, but she still seeks external validation constantly, her needs exceed what one partner can provide. Additionally, notice if she creates situations designed to generate attention. Does she dress provocatively, specifically, in settings where she'll receive male attention? Does she engage in flirtatious behavior while watching to see your reaction? Does she tell stories designed to communicate how many men find her attractive? These behaviors reveal she's not just enjoying attention, she's actively generating it. How to assess? Observe what happens during a period where you're less available. You're busy with work, dealing with personal issues, or just not providing constant focused attention. Does she handle normal fluctuations in attention maturely? Or does she become anxious, accusatory, or suddenly more active on social media, seeking validation elsewhere? Also notice whether she's comfortable in low-attention environments. If you spend quiet time together, without external stimulation or social settings, is she content, or does she need constant engagement, entertainment, or connection to outside validation sources? Women secure in themselves can exist without constant attention. Women who need external validation become restless without it. Habit 4. The situational ethics, flexible morality based on circumstances. When she tells stories that reveal flexible ethics, she's justified lying when it served her purposes. She's bent rules she found inconvenient. She's rationalized behavior. She'd criticize in others, or she speaks admiringly of people who do what they need to do, regardless of who gets hurt. She's not showing street smarts or pragmatism. She's revealing that her moral framework is situational rather than principled, which means fidelity will also be situational, based on circumstances, opportunities, and her needs in the moment. What this reveals she operates from expediency rather than integrity. Women with situational ethics don't view fidelity as an absolute commitment. They view it as a preference that applies unless circumstances make infidelity seem justified. If she's demonstrated flexible morality in other areas, she'll apply the same flexibility to relationship boundaries when motivated. Notice how she discusses others' moral failures. If she's sympathetic to friends who've cheated, her boyfriend wasn't meeting her needs. He was working too much. She was lonely. She's revealing she views infidelity as understandable response to circumstances rather than inexcusable. Betrayal. These justifications for others' infidelity preview the justifications she'll use for her own. Watch whether she holds herself to different standards than others. If she criticizes behavior in other people that she herself engages in, or if she finds excuses for her own questionable behavior while judging others harshly for the same things, she has flexible ethics that shift based on whose interests are being served. This flexibility will extend to fidelity. The pattern to notice. She might explicitly state that morality is complex. I don't think things are black and white. You can't judge without knowing someone's situation. Or, sometimes people have reasons for what they do. While mature morality recognizes complexity, notice if she never identifies behaviors she considers categorically wrong. If everything is situationally justifiable, then infidelity is too. Additionally, notice if her stories reveal a history of boundary violations she's rationalized. Did she maintain inappropriate emotional connections she hid from previous partners? Did she overlap relationships? Has she lied to partners when she felt the lies served good purposes? Past boundary violations, especially ones she's justified, predict future ones. How to assess? Present hypothetical moral scenarios and observe her reasoning. What do you think about people who cheat when they're in unhappy relationships? If she immediately justifies it or provides scenarios where it's understandable, she's revealing her framework. Women with firm boundaries around fidelity express that cheating is wrong regardless of relationship problems. The ethical choice is addressing issues or leaving, not betraying. Also, observe her reaction when you express firm ethical positions. If you state something like, "I think infidelity is never justified," If you're unhappy, you should leave first. Does she agree, or does she push back with exceptions and complications? Her willingness to find justifications for infidelity reveals she's already constructed mental frameworks that would excuse her own. Habit 5. The impulsivity pattern. Poor control over immediate gratification. When she consistently makes impulsive decisions, she spends money she doesn't have, makes major choices without considering consequences, acts on immediate desires without reflection, or struggles to delay gratification, even for her own long-term benefit. She's not being spontaneous or living in the moment. She's revealing poor impulse control and inability to prioritize long-term commitments over immediate desires, which means she'll struggle to choose relationship commitment over immediate attraction or opportunity. What this reveals? This reveals she operates from immediate gratification rather than long-term thinking. Fidelity requires choosing long-term relationship commitment over short-term temptation. Women who consistently demonstrate poor impulse control in other areas will struggle with impulse control around attraction and opportunity. If she can't resist immediate gratification in general, she won't suddenly find that discipline specifically around fidelity. Notice patterns across different areas of her life. Does she struggle with impulsive spending? Does she make rash decisions she later regrets? Does she have difficulty sticking to commitments when maintaining them becomes inconvenient? These patterns all involve choosing immediate satisfaction over delayed gratification, which is the same choice she'll face when attracted to someone else or presented with opportunity. Watch how she responds to temptation in real time. If you're together and she sees something she wants, whether it's food, purchases, or experiences, does she demonstrate ability to pause and consider, or does she immediately pursue what she wants? Her in-the-moment decision-making reveals whether she can override immediate impulses for larger priorities. The pattern to notice. She might frame impulsivity positively. I'm spontaneous. I follow my heart. Or life's too short for regrets. While spontaneity can be positive, notice if she has history of impulsive decisions that harmed her or others. If her spontaneity has consistently created negative consequences she's had to deal with afterward, she's not being adventurous. She's demonstrating poor impulse control. Additionally, notice if she romanticizes impulsivity in relationship contexts. I believe in following your feelings. You can't control who you're attracted to, or sometimes passion just happens. These statements reveal she views attraction and impulse as forces that override commitment, which means she won't fight attraction to others. She'll follow her feelings wherever they lead. How to assess? Observe how she handles temptation when you're together. That looks amazing, but I'm trying to save money for my trip, versus immediately purchasing whatever appeals to her. Her ability to delay gratification and honor larger commitments when faced with immediate desire predicts whether she can do the same with fidelity. Also explore her history. Tell me about a time you made an impulsive decision you regretted. If she can't identify any, she's either remarkably lucky or lacking self-awareness about her impulsivity. If she identifies several but hasn't changed patterns, she's aware but not controlling her impulses. Either scenario predicts poor impulse control around fidelity.